Okay, we're slightly short on Kevin and Gilly. Are you able to hear us at all? What do you suggest, Graham? Should I? I'm Kev, and I'm going to be having a bit of a chat about making the most of marking and feedback. Before I get started on this, though, I'd like a bit of info from you. So, Graham, can you pop up the first poll for me, please? Basically, the first one is asking which sector you currently work in. So, if you could just vote on the thing that you should have visible to you now, and just select where it is you are currently teaching. Right, okay. So that's all of you, and hopefully you can see now that all of you have selected secondary. So that allows me to take a particular view on this. The next one I'd like you to do is the second poll. So Graham, could you pull the second poll up, please? And this poll is intended to get an idea of how much experience you've had as teaching.
Sorry, which poll?
Number 2, please. So just to give you an idea as to sort of how long you've been teaching, and poll, if you could do poll 3 for me, Graham, please. Which is your role within the school and kind of your type of responsibility and that kind of thing. Okay, so we've got a mixture from TLR holder to head of department to senior leadership. Fantastic. Right. Thank you, folks. That just allows me to understand who I'm talking to and that kind of thing. We'll do another poll later on, and I'll also ask for some input via the chat as we go on. But first of all, basically, really, we're looking at the perennial challenges for teachers, which is managing workload, keeping marking up to date, and making sure our lessons are well planned. And it just that kind of challenge continues sort of day in, day out for all of us. So really what we want to do is make sure that any form of marking and feedback is as effective as possible. What I want to talk about today is kind of go through these topics. First of all, I want to consider the purpose of marking. Look at mark planning and how we can use the two things kind of link together and should link together. And then also the Reg 123 and coded marking, trying to be as efficient as possible. Consider briefly the importance of DIRT, and then some other bits in terms of ideas for using summative assessments formatively, and also considering making progress visible and that kind of thing. So that's the kind of the headline things. Now, before we go too much further, I want to talk about some definitions, because people view marking as different things. For me today, and for the purpose of this session, I'm going to be talking about marking as reviewing written work, which would normally be in the absence of the student and normally result in the teacher making some kind of marks on the student's work. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of marking, that process. When I talk about feedback, I'm going to be talking about some kind of information that is used to shape actions in future lessons. It may or may not be actively given. What I mean by that is that it may be something that you just pick up as part of a lesson, or it may be something that is passively communicated, not deliberately this is feedback, and so it doesn't necessarily have to have a kind of a clear title on it, but it's information about what's happened in previous lessons to go on for future stuff. And finally, the other definition I want to talk about is AFL, or assessment for learning. And for me today, I want to talk about this in the sense of something that happens during a lesson, and it's always with the students present. So this is things like your whether it's a thumbs up, thumbs down, whether it's a mini whiteboard type thing, or whether it's something else that goes on during the lesson. But for today only, really, marking is writing stuff in books. Feedback is some kind of information passing from one to the other, and AFL is something that's kind of done on a more dynamic basis. That's kind of where we start off. So I want to spend a moment talking about the purpose of marking feedback. Now, if you think about it, a lot of people just say, well, that's just what teachers do, isn't it? And actually, if you talk to anyone outside of teaching, they just assume that that's what we spend our time doing, because we get all these apparently long holidays and all that kind of stuff, so marking must be what we fill it with. And we have PPA time, and the kind of the A bit is for assessment, and the thing is, yes, we accept it's kind of what we do, and when we were at school it was what teachers did as well, and that kind of stuff, but it's worth considering just for saying why we mark things, what the purpose is. So this is where I'm going to ask you to interact a little bit for a sec. What I'm going to ask you to do is, first off, can you suggest what the purpose, and put it in the chat box, what do you think the purpose of marking feedback is for the pupil, so from the pupil's perspective. So I'll give you a few moments to put in your thoughts, and then we'll have a bit